Welcome back to another episode of the Injured List podcast. I'm your host, Brian Scott, bringing you expert insight from inside the medical tent. Week 6 of the NFL season was packed with action and, unfortunately, plenty of injuries. From star quarterbacks to key skill players, we saw some big names go down and a few others fighting to get back on the field. In today's episode, I'll break down the most notable injuries from the week, explain what's really going on from a medical perspective, and give you an idea of what to expect in terms of recovery timelines and return to play outlooks. Whether you're a fan worried about your team or a fantasy manager trying to set that perfect lineup, I've got you covered with the latest updates and analysis to help you stay ahead of the curve. So grab your playbook. We're heading inside the medical tent for your Week 6 NFL injury report. Let's get started.
Please welcome the host of the Injured List podcast, Brian Scott. This episode is brought to you by ILP Sports Consultants, where athletes and organizations get personalized injury guidance and support. Learn more at ilpsports.com.
All right. Like we mentioned earlier in the intro, we've got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Let's begin with the quarterback position. Now, Lamar Jackson did not suit up this week, and we kind of knew that that was going to be the case. We had predicted that the Ravens were likely to wait until their Week 7 bye was over and give Lamar Jackson the extra week of rest and recovery from this hamstring issue. Lo and behold, here we are. He didn't play this past weekend. I expect, though, that he will be ready coming off their bye week in 2 weeks. So let's keep an eye on what happens as we progress through the end of next week into the start of Week 8, because we should see him ramp up his activity and be ready to go. Week 8, I don't think they can afford to have him sit anymore, as things are not looking good without him at the helm. Keep in mind, the Ravens and the Bills are the only two teams on bye for Week 7. So that's pretty important when you're looking at injuries and how that affects players coming off IR, or potentially how it is related to roster management. Interesting name on the list, or maybe not. Anthony Richardson in a freak accident in the pregame. And I think their tight end or one of their other players got injured in the pregame as well. I think he got hit or collided with another player and suffered a concussion. I think it was one of their cornerbacks, but Anthony Richardson apparently was doing some type of shoulder exercises or some type of exercises that involved one of those TheraBands or exercise bands, the resistance bands. Apparently, there was a mishap, and it came and shot back at him in the face and caused an orbital fracture. I believe he was taken to the hospital, diagnosed. From what I understand, it did not require any surgery. Oftentimes they do not. And it would be really shocking if it did, because usually those involve really high energy injuries, like in car accidents or direct blows to the face with like a blunt force trauma or object. So in this case, it was significant enough that it caused a fracture, but not significant enough that it would require surgical treatment. So I guess if you're looking for a silver lining, that would be it. But, I mean, come on, man. Anthony Richardson, if things couldn't get any worse for that guy, Daniel Jones kind of grabbed the starting job there by the horns and is taking the Colts on to a 5-1 record now, I think, right? 5-1. So it doesn't look like Anthony Richardson is getting back on the field anytime soon, even without that injury. Now, Kyler Murray is still out. He had, I should say still. This was the first week out with some type of mid-foot injury. At least we're assuming it is. There have been some reports that said it was a Liz Frank variant. I don't know what that means. You either have a Liz Frank injury or you don't. There are different degrees of Liz Frank injuries, but unclear as to exactly what it is. It sounds like he's going to be out at least a couple of weeks. However, I'm not so sure of that. I think that we'll have to see if he ramps up his activity heading into next week. This week, I should say, he did get on the field Friday for some limited time, but then was ruled out Sunday, kind of last minute. but we kind of saw it coming through the weeds. So not unusual, not unusual to have that happen. Also not a surprise considering some of the reports that were coming out earlier in the week regarding Kyler Murray. As of right now, it's not looking good for Week 7. We'll keep a close eye and update you guys as that develops. And then we knew Brock Purdy wasn't going to be out on the field this past weekend, and of course he was not. Mac Jones continues to take snaps for the 49ers, who continue to just lose players left and right. We'll get into some of that later. They did lose one of their all-pro linebackers, unfortunately, in Fred Warner with a nasty-looking fracture dislocation of his ankle, season-ending. I posted about that on my X feed. You can see the picture that I highlighted where the injury occurred. So very unfortunate. And that guy hasn't missed like one game in his entire career due to injury, which is pretty remarkable, considering he's played like over 150 games, I think, or something like that. So unfortunately for him, this one got him, and it got him good, and he'll be out for quite a while. Moving on to the running back position, Bucky Irving is still dealing with this foot and shoulder issue. He was confirmed out for Week 6 pretty early on. I still don't think we're going to see him Week 7. He hasn't done much to get back on the field as of yet. So we will have to see how things progress over the remaining few days here in this week. It's not sounding optimistic that he'll be available Week 7. Originally, we were saying it's going to be several weeks, and so far that's holding true. We'll have to keep an eye as things, again, develop. Chuba Hubbard, well, unfortunately for him, it looked like he was going to get back on the field last week, and then Rico Dowdle had an amazing breakout performance, followed that up with another one this past weekend, and so Chuba Hubbard now kind of finds himself in limbo. I think he's going to be ready Week 7. The question is whether or not they're going to use him and give him any snaps, so you might want to stash him if you have him. He should be healed up from this calf injury. I think they gave him an extra week, seeing as how Dowdle has been performing. But as far as that calf injury goes, I think he's had ample time to recover. Not much else new on the running back front that I have in my notes. Alvin Kamara ended up playing last week. He was listed as questionable with an ankle injury. There were some rumors floating around that he might be traded. Turned out not to be the case. He didn't go anywhere. Sounds like he's not going anywhere. Kendre Miller's been playing really well, though, and so I think that was part of why those rumors started spreading. It sounds like Alvin Kamara might be getting some limited action because of Miller's performance. So the ankle issue may have been something that kind of gave them a little bit more momentum, the Saints, to put Kendre Miller in the running back 1 slot ahead of Kamara. But it doesn't sound like this injury is anything serious. He's dealt with some ankle stuff in the past, and throughout his career, he's missed very limited amount of time due to injuries, including this ankle. So I don't suspect that this is what's limiting him. I think it's more about Kendre Miller performing better. Heading over to the wide receiver position, CeeDee Lamb is still making his way back from that ankle injury. He was confirmed out for Week 6 pretty early on. I think we'll see him ramping up his activity heading into Week 7. I still don't necessarily think we're going to see him till Week 8. That will be, I think, right about when we said originally he was coming back. But he did look good in this limited time he's been out in the field doing some rehab work, so we'll see how he's progressing. And he could be back Week 7, but I think originally we were saying Week 8. We're going to stick to that. Cavante Turpin, confirmed out for Week 6 early last week with a foot injury. We haven't heard any new updates on him. Sounds like this could be several weeks as well. We'll have to kind of pay attention to how things unfold over the next few days here and whether or not he can get back on the field. Mike Evans dealing with a hamstring injury. I feel like he's been dealing with hamstring injuries throughout his career, at least for the last few years. I feel like he's ended up on our injured reports multiple times because of the hamstring issues. So it's not unusual for him, unfortunately, but at his age, at the skill position, it's going to hamper him. It's going to be a while. So we could see this extend for several weeks, and I wouldn't put that past anybody at his age as a wide receiver. So unfortunately for him, he'll be down for quite some time. My guess is anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks, but we'll have to see. Terry McLaurin, meanwhile, still dealing with this quad hip flexor thing. Not quite sure. Again, we haven't gotten much new updates on him. He did not play this past weekend. It sounded like he was ramping up in hopes of being ready, and then kind of late in the week, they said no. I have a feeling this is going to be the way it kind of goes week to week with him. So he might, again, get some limited time and ramp his activity up toward the weekend and then make a late week call about whether or not he's ready. So keep an eye on what he's doing at practice. that will be telling. A guy who actually did come back and play was Juwan Jennings. He's actually playing apparently with 5 broken ribs and coming off an ankle sprain and some type of shoulder issue he was dealing with since the preseason. And I think even in the offseason he was dealing with a shoulder issue. So kudos to him for getting back on the field and playing with rib injuries. That's not easy to do. He missed several weeks with all these injuries kind of adding up, just compiling. But he did make it out there this past week. It sounds like he's going to be doing very little work at practice. But now that he's been on the game field this past weekend, we should see him continue to play and be ready for game time. I just don't think we're going to see him doing much at practice because their 49ers are so shorthanded and they're just losing people left and right. Speaking of, Ricky Pearsall's still out. He's going to be probably out for a couple more weeks dealing with that knee issue, PCL sprain. So we'll keep a close eye on that as well. I don't know if we're going to see him this week 7 here. I think this might be more of a week 8, week 9 thing. Unfortunately for the 49ers, their bye week comes very late in the season. So they're going to be literally limping into their bye week. A guy that I thought was making his way back and turns out he didn't was Darnell Mooney of the Falcons. He was unable to bounce back from that hamstring issue. He didn't practice on Friday. It turned out, I think he might have even had a limited session, though, earlier in the week, and then he might have had a setback, which is very common with hamstring issues. Oftentimes, they get easily aggravated. Just when you think you've made a comeback, the injury can recur, and the injury rates, or re-injury rates, I should say, are very high for hamstring injuries, so not unusual to hear that happen to a guy who looks like he's on his way back and then suddenly has a setback with their hamstring. So he might not be back for week 7 either. This is literally going to be a week-to-week, let's see what he can do at practice thing. But my advice is to not push it. And surprisingly, they haven't put him on IR. I thought that would have been something they would strongly consider. Now, you can do that retroactively. I'm not sure that does much for them at this point, but that is an option. A guy that we thought was going to be back from IR was Jalen Coker. He had been working his way back from a quad injury that occurred in the preseason. It sounded like things were going well and he was getting ready. And then late last week, they decided to hold him out. So I think we'll see him week 7. He should be a guy that we can expect back on the field week 7. Christian Watson, meanwhile, he's any day I feel like he should be cleared and ready to go. He's entered the 21-day window coming off his ACL injury. I think maybe heading into week 2 now. So they're going to have to make a decision soon on him. He has been practicing. You can't enter the 21-day window until you've stepped back on the practice field. Now, whether or not he's doing team drills, I don't know. He'll have to get through some increased activity and increased drills and teamwork stuff before getting cleared. So we'll have to kind of see what he can do this week. But that 21-day window is coming to an end very quickly, so they'll have to make a decision on him very soon. Now, Jamar Chase was reported as having some type of illness last week, and in practice he was held out for some walkthroughs and some drills on Friday. The team was optimistic that he'd be ready to play, and Week said that he was probably just dealing with like a 24-hour bug or something that was kind of just hampering him. It didn't sound like it was anything serious. We knew he was going to play. He did. He played well. And this shouldn't be anything that lingers into Week 7 or beyond. Now, there's been some good young receivers out there this year. Emeka Ekpuka was one of them, and unfortunately, he left the game this past weekend with a hamstring injury and did not return. And wouldn't you know it, it was against the 49ers, so I guess the 49ers are trying to get rid of some of their bad juju over to Tampa Bay, and it worked. And it sounds like, from all reports thus far, it's going to be a several-week absence for Ekpuka with this hamstring injury. He's got youth on his side. I didn't see or notice a big limp on him when he was leaving the field, which is good. Although sometimes a day later, that thing can really spasm and cramp up, and you can really feel the effects of that hamstring injury the following day or two. So he's probably worse off now than he was on Sunday, and I expect that we won't see him doing much the rest of this week at practice. So my guess is at least 2 weeks, if not 4, depending on the severity here. Whether or not they get an MRI, we'll kind of have to wait and see. I don't know if that's going to change anything much. It might just confirm for them what they had suspected. So, now speaking of MRIs, Garrett Wilson went down apparently with a hyperextension of his knee this past week. And MRI reports did not show any major structural damage, but it sounds like he's going to be at least a few weeks. Now, sometimes what can happen with a knee hyperextension injury is you can sprain some of the ligaments in the knee, but also you can develop bone bruising in there. And that sometimes can be the thing that slows people down. Brock Bowers is currently dealing with this. He had a PCL injury and a bone contusion, and those things can take a long time to heal. Add the fact that Garrett Wilson, according to a lot of people, didn't seem too happy in New York this season, the way things are kind of unfolding there. And I don't really know if he's motivated to get back on the field with that Jets team right now. So this is going to be at least a few weeks. And of course, we'll keep you guys updated with that. Now, an interesting turn of events happened today as I was getting ready to do my podcast, and that was reports circulating that Brandon Ayuk apparently has been absent from 49ers practice facility for several weeks, has removed all signs of the 49ers from his social media accounts, and is basically MIA. So this is a guy coming off an ACL reconstructive surgery last year. They had hopes that he was going to be available at some point during the season here to suit up. And lo and behold, now apparently he's not even showing up to practice or to the facility. So who knows what's going on there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more news to report on, but there is no return of him on the field for the foreseeable future. So I can't even give you a time frame here anymore. He's almost, if I'm not mistaken, he's already past the 10-month mark, and I could be wrong there, but it was supposed to be getting close to when he was coming back. And now we have no timetable and no information about where he is or what's going on with that situation, so we'll have to pay attention there. Another guy who went down this weekend was Puka Nacua. It was kind of weird because I'm not exactly sure when the injury occurred. There was a play in the end zone toward the end of the first half where he had gone up to make a catch, came down, landed awkwardly with the defender. It actually looked like he might have injured his lower leg or his knee or something on the opposite side of what they're saying his injury is. So I'm not really sure where this occurred. It could have happened a few plays earlier now, some people were saying. Apparently he sprained his ankle. When he came back in the second half, he didn't really do much. I think he only had a couple snaps. He ended up finishing the game like 2 receptions for 20-something yards. They're saying he's going to miss at least a few weeks. Now, they have a week 8 bye, and so I can almost guarantee you we won't see him before that. So you're looking at probably a week 9 return, which basically gives him about 3 weeks to get ready. And I think that that's reasonable. I don't think this was a serious injury. For one, we can't really pinpoint the exact time that he got hurt. And if it wasn't the play in the end zone, which is when he went down grabbing the left ankle, which I looked at that replay a million times, I couldn't see a point in time where he injured it. So I think it was a few plays before, which tells me that it probably wasn't that severe. It probably just got aggravated at that play in the end zone. So, and he came back to try and play through it. So I think what we're dealing with here is probably a mild injury, which is good, because Nacua has lost some time from various injuries over the years. I think they're playing it smart here. Let's just get him through the bye week, make sure he's good to go. So that's what's probably going to happen. Another guy who went down with another hamstring, Calvin Ridley. He was forced to leave the game early this past weekend. Again, this is probably going to be a several-week absence, at least 2. We'll keep an eye on this as things develop. And concussion reared its ugly head, no pun intended. Marvin Harrison Jr. was injured and was treated for concussion. And it'll be some time before we see him get on the practice field. And what he does will kind of be telling about how far along in the progressing through the protocol he is, which requires that guys do some physical activity, symptom-free, and then ramp it up as they feel better. So we won't know much until the week progresses here with him, and whether or not he'll make it through the protocol in time for the week 7 return. We'll have to see how things unfold. Not much new at the tight end position. Brock Bowers remains out. As we reported last week, Brenton Strange is on IR. George Kittles should be coming back from IR. They're saying week 7. That's the week that they've been saying for the last 2 weeks now. With all these other things going on in the 49ers, I can't see how they can wait any longer to get him back. So I think this is going to be the week we finally see George Kittles back. He's coming back from a hamstring injury. He was on IR, so now we're looking at, I think it's about week 6. So that's about right. 4 weeks, 4 games, IR. Took about 2 weeks out of that 21-day window to get cleared. And I think that's that's wise. They waited as long as they possibly could to get him back on the field, and hopefully that results in him not having to deal with this hamstring issue the rest of the season. A late addition to the list was Dalton Kincaid, who had an oblique issue pop up and was a last-minute decision prior to the Monday night game for the Bills, so he sat out. We'll have to see if this is going to keep him out for next week. It could be that they're resting him on Monday night because they are the only other team that has a bye next week, and they want him to be 100% heading into week 9. Week 8. So we'll see. They'll have to deal without him, but they've got a good backup on their team, so I think they'll be just fine. And of course, I'm sure there's a lot of players that I haven't touched upon. If you guys have questions or you have any other players that you'd like me to touch upon, feel free to leave comments down below. Hit me up on social media. I'll be happy to review stuff with you and put some posts out there to answer questions. As always, everybody, you're listening to the Injured List Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Scott from That Sports Podcast Network. Stay active, stay healthy, and stay out of the medical tent. Till next time. Special shout out to today's episode to SeatGeek. We recently partnered with them to become a brand ambassador. What does that mean? Well, for you, it means you get a special discount when you make your first ticket purchase with SeatGeek. With my code, InjuredListPod, you will get $20 off your first purchase with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticket purchasing app that takes all the confusion out of buying tickets to your favorite sports, concert events, and more. They score each ticket on a scale of 1 to 10 to help you know if you're getting a good deal. Green is good, red is bad. My followers get $20 off their first ticket purchase using my code, InjuredListPod. Click on the link in the show notes and browse for your favorite events. Your next big night ever is waiting, and they have the tickets. Dr. Michael Hutchinson has harnessed the latest in neuromuscular dentistry and impact technology to develop a mouthguard that does more than protect. It enhances. NeuroGuard Plus isn't just a mouthguard. By focusing on the jaw's physiological position, it provides an added layer of neuroprotection, significantly reducing the risk of sports-related neurological injuries. All athletes should be using a custom mouthguard designed to their bite position. NeuroGuard Plus was created as a means to maintain your physiological jaw position regardless of your bite. The appliance is designed to optimize your upper-lower jaw relationship to improve your strength, your balance, your oxygen intake, and drastically lower your chance of a concussion. Independent studies have shown that the NeuroGuard Plus will provide you with improvement to both upper and lower body strength. The same improvements were not present with a common mouthguard. Over 6,500 athletes have used the NeuroGuard Plus. Dr. Hutchinson is happy to say that the amount of diagnosed concussions is 0.2%. The NeuroGuard Plus offers athletes, coaches, and parents an advantage to keep their players safe on the field. If you or your child actively participates in athletics, they need to be protected from the dangers of repetitive head trauma. Get your NeuroGuard Plus mouthguard today. Click on the link and use code ILPSports for 10% discount on your purchase.